We're so close,
Oof.
y'all. We have turned the page from fall camp. It's time to get ready for North Carolina. We're going to talk about the biggest takeaways from fall camp and the hot start that soccer is off to right now on Frogs Insider. Hey, Frog fans, welcome into another episode of Frogs Insider. Jamie Plunkett here alongside Melissa Treebwasser. As always, episode 130.
Wow.
Just cruising right along. You'll love to see it. And we are going to talk a lot about fall camp today because technically, according to the calendar, TCU fall camp is over. They finished with their second scrimmage on Sunday evening earlier this week. And now they are on to 2 weeks of North Carolina prep, Melissa. And that means to me, that's the real signal. Like Big 12 media days, oh, it's getting closer. Fall camp starting. Yeah, we're here. We're hearing pads pop. And now, oh, it's on to North Carolina. Bill Belichick, we're on to wherever they were on to when he was still the Patriots coach. We're on to Cincinnati. Now, well, we're on to North Carolina, Bill.
You know how I know it's football season?
How?
When I get that first Big 12 football weekly report in my inbox. And that came today. I was very excited.
It had some fun stuff on it, too.
It did. Look,
That's
Big
some fun
12,
stuff.
Big 12 communications, A+ work, friends, as per always.
Truly.
Yeah, that to me is like, okay, now it's real. Now it's go time. So I'm excited, Jamie. Like we've got football this weekend. We got Farmageddon.
International Farmageddon.
International Farmageddon this weekend, Saturday. We've got Stanford at Hawaii, and Hawaii's favored. There is 2.5. There's a lot. There's a lot to be.
Andrew
looking
Luck
forward
era
to.
off to a bad start.
Hey, they haven't played a game yet. You know where my second allegiances lie.
I know.
We're gonna hope for the best. But yeah, like football is happening this weekend. TCU is in full game prep mode, and you and I will be getting on a plane here in a couple weeks to go watch the Horned Frogs in person, and that is super super exciting.
Cannot wait to be in Chapel Hill. Cannot wait to see the Frogs get on the field against the Tar Heels and actually play some meaningful football.
Yeah.
This was my favorite bullet point from the Big 12's media email this week, by the way, Melissa.
Okay, can't wait.
The Big 12 has 9 teams, that's the majority of the league, that returned quarterbacks who threw for 2,400 yards or more last season, nearly twice the total of any other Power 4 conference. The conference also bolstered its QB class with talented newcomers. We care less about that part of the stat.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, who cares?
9 returning quarterbacks who threw for at least 2,400 yards last year, and that's more than double any other Power 4 conference. That, I think, along with the fact that nobody knows what the win totals of these teams are going to be in Las Vegas, we're in for some damn good football in the Big 12 this year. And we get it off the rip in week 0 with Farmageddon, with Iowa State against Kansas State in Dublin.
Yeah, it is going to be an absolute blast. I mean, I think that, a lot of people want to say that the amount of unknowns in this conference make it less appealing, but to a true college football sicko, the Big 12 is going to be the most fun conference in the country. I think that's without a doubt. And because you do have such high-level quarterback play, you do have such high-level coaching, and we don't know anything right now, sitting here in the middle of August. A couple major injuries have struck some of the top contenders. You never know how that's going to play out. I mean, there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot to be excited about. And kicking things off with Farmageddon is just honestly seems like the perfect way to start this football season.
100%. 100%. And we get Kansas playing somebody on week 0. Some fun games week 0. And then all hell breaks loose week 1 with some absolute bangers of football games. We get Cincinnati, Nebraska on a Friday night next week. We get some other really good match. Obviously TCU North Carolina. We get Miami against somebody on that Sunday night. Miami Notre Dame.
I was like, can I fly to Miami, go
and then
to that
get
game? But it wasn't worth the risk.
Probably not.
Would have been really fun.
But I mean, so you got Thursday night, Nebraska, Cincinnati. Friday night, you've got Georgia Tech, Colorado, Baylor against Auburn. Saturday,
Auburn's fun.
That's going to be a banger. Hugh Freeze said today that all 3 Auburn quarterbacks will play in that game. Shout out to Jackson Arnold.
All 17 play callers will call the first drive.
Each. I think, by the way, I got Hugh's email, your third quarter, second play.
Okay.
The first drive. So he shuffled some things around.
Okay. Thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
I'm fourth quarter goal line situation.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
so you're a little bit, you moved up the rankings. You're a little bit more important. Okay.
Exactly right.
Good to know. Good to know. It's all good.
And then, our good friend Parker Fleming got overtime, the whole series of overtime.
Because we know it's going to OT.
And then you got Texas, Ohio State. You've
It's also a
got,
big game. Julian
yes,
Sayin against Arch Manning.
gosh, two guys who we don't really know what they are yet. Saturday afternoon, you got Alabama, Florida State. I mean, just so many good football games right off the rip. It feels like we didn't get this last year. LSU Clemson is on this for
LSU
that
Clemson's
Saturday.
first. Wow.
Like week one brings it, absolutely brings it. You get UCLA, Utah as well, which is interesting, I think, for Big 12 folks. You have Hawaii, Arizona, which is a fun little kind of, okay, well, how did Stanford do against Hawaii? Now let's see a Big 12 team. You got Virginia Tech against South Carolina. I mean, just really, really fun matchups all across the board.
And let's enjoy it this year because I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more Indiana scheduling than we're going to see weeks like this in the near future, unfortunately.
On the one hand, I cannot blame them.
Yep. But on the
because
other hand,
this is how the system is set up. But on the other hand, it makes me very sad.
Yeah. So we got to enjoy the hell out of
very
this
sad.
one. This year's going to be absolute, just wild and out. So, and TCU will be a big part of that because they, as big of games as there is that weekend, TCU has a standalone game on Monday night, and it's Bill Belichick. So all eyes are going to be turned on to Chapel Hill. We've said it 100 times, and we'll keep saying it for the next week and a half or so. This is a massive, massive game for TCU.
Yes.
Not a lot of believers in this team. Most people seem to have them low 30s or early 40s there for a preseason ranking. There are others receiving votes in a couple of the polls, but at the end of the day, this feels like a massive year for TCU football. It feels like a massive year for Sonny Dykes, and they have an opportunity to get the world paying attention correctly on night one with every college football fan watching that game.
Yes. Can't draw enough comparisons to Colorado 2 years ago, where you had a similar opportunity at home and you biffed it.
Yeah.
Totally beefed it, fell flat on your face. It set the season back horrendously. We don't need to rehash it anymore. But how refreshing would it be? Because I think I've mentioned this on the show before, Melissa, it feels like TCU has yet to really fully escape the national championship game.
Sure.
Like that's still kind of what gets brought up first anytime TCU gets
traded
mentioned.
61-58 for 62-7.
65-7,
whatever it is. I can't remember.
And except Baylor fans will still say 61-58, despite the 1-7 record against TCU since that game. But they're just, I feel like a win against North Carolina, standalone game Sunday night against Bill Belichick, could be a first really good step to finally moving out of the shadow of that game.
Yeah.
Big non-conference game, huge name on the other sideline, national media attention. Go win that thing. Heck, win it on a last-second field goal, which we'll talk about field goals in a second.
Oh, God.
That'd be great. Win it by 2 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden you've started to rewrite the narrative nationally about TCU. There's a lot riding on this game. Very excited for it. And while the team begins on Tuesday morning of this week, when our sweet, sweet listeners have their headphones in and are listening to us talk, TCU will have moved on to North Carolina. I think the appropriate thing to do on this episode is to fully put a bow on fall camp. Talk about the best things we saw, talk about some risers, talk about some most impressive people, and then we'll also move on to North Carolina and hot takes, because we know how our folks love hot takes. We're going to be back with our annual hot takes episode next week. You will have a chance, whether it's on Horned Frog Blitz or on Twitter, to submit a hot take. We will read it. We're trying to get some special guests lined up for this show this year. That would be kind of fun to read hot takes with some other folks. And so that'll be next week. This week, we're putting a bow on fall camp. Next episode, hot takes. And then the episode after that is
game week, baby.
North Carolina preview. Let's get it. Melissa.
Hi, May.
Fall camp.
Yeah.
Is over. I feel like we learned a good amount about this football team over the last 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So let's go through and let's talk a little bit about some of our biggest takeaways. Starting with you and your first big takeaway. What is it?
To me, I think that
you can tell that we haven't written any of this down.
We're flying by. Listen, I started back
Episode
at
130. We don't
yeah,
need
1:30.
notes.
We know what we're doing. I'm starting school again. Teaching. It's
Breaking news: Melissa goes back to school.
oh, I would love to go back to school, except I don't want to live in the TCU dorms that are being flooded right now. But other than
Just
that,
one,
just
just
one, just
one.
one
All the
singular
other ones are
dorm. My
still
bad.
really nice.
And also glad I don't have to relive bid day because the PTSD is very real. But happy for everybody that found their Greek life home over the weekend, and for everyone that didn't, it's okay. You'll be okay.
You'll be
I
fine.
promise.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, to me, and I'm going to go super broad, super general right out of the gate. I felt like this was as professional a fall camp as I've seen TCU be a part of, right? It felt like, and I think part of that was just because of the sheer volume of coaches on the field at any
Sure.
given time.
Yeah.
But it felt like everybody is very aligned in their mission.
Mm-hmm.
That everybody is very aligned in the vision of what this team can accomplish. And they took fall camp very seriously. They were still having a good time. They were still messing around. They were still, getting in each other's faces a little bit. All the things you want to see a team do. But this was a very business-like fall camp, in my opinion. And it feels like everybody understands both the opportunity and the risk that this season encapsulates, kind of. So I appreciated their approach. I thought Sonny was very much in charge from the get. Had a firm grasp on his guys and what they needed, and I was very, very impressed with how the coaches worked each station, how they worked. We've talked about this last week, but just the detail, the attention to detail, the attention to discipline. I think that those things are going to pay dividends, and I was really impressed with what I saw when I was out there.
Yeah, I liked it, and I think professional is a really good word for it, because it did feel, for the number of people that they had, very organized and very on schedule and on task. They were still doing some of the little things, like if guys did move from one station to the next as fast as they wanted, they would send them back, make them do it again. We didn't see a ton of that. We did see Sonny really get on them one day in a morning practice because he didn't like the level of energy that they had brought to the day. Told them that that's not what a championship team does as far as bringing their own energy. And so we saw the organizational mind of Sonny at work. We saw the disciplinarian of Sonny at work. We also saw a lot of examples of him doing what I think he does best, which is equipping his staff and then letting them go and coach, and not being the kind of overbearing micromanager that we know a lot of other coaches can be. So I think I agree with you there. For me, I think my biggest takeaway when it comes to the team itself is there's a confidence and the depth on the roster that I don't think has been there the last couple of years, really since 2022. When you talk about position group by position group, going down the list and talking and seeing talent and experience, and not just one or two guys, but three or four when you're talking about the linebackers, or five or six when you're talking about the cornerbacks, or four when you're talking about the running backs, or the fact that, we talked about it last episode, Ken Seals is probably one of the most experienced backups in the country. Yeah. And so you look up and down this roster, and wherever you're looking, you see valuable depth. And you can make the counter argument that, does depth take away from top end talent? Like, if you've got so much depth, what does that mean about talent if you're always talking about depth? Well, I think there's room for both. I think we saw that in a year like 2022, and in 2015 and 14, and in 2010. And, there's a history of TCU having both. I'm not comparing this team to any of those teams yet. I want to be explicitly clear. But I do like that when we saw Marcus Steele miss a couple of practices, Connor Lindgren stepped in right away and didn't really miss a beat. When you have Carson Bruno at right guard, or it's Remington Strickland, or during the scrimmage last weekend, Remington Strickland took first team reps at center, right? Like, you didn't really lose a beat. When you have Jacoby Hayes at the Z instead of, Eric McAllister, you didn't really lose a beat at times. Or Ed Small out at the X, or Manjack in the slot versus Major in the slot versus Dozie out wide. Like, you didn't lose a lot of depth places. Safety is another one as well. And so for me, if I'm looking at a team that has the aspirations that TCU has, the expectations that TCU has, you know you're going to lose somebody at some point,
Mhm.
whether it's for a quarter or a game or a month, whatever. The fact that they have the depth that they have, to me, is really reassuring because there have been instances in the past where it's like, well, shit, we lost a linebacker, and now what are we going to do? Right. And I don't feel like that's the case for TCU this year.
Yeah, and I think that football is a contact sport, right? You like you said, there's going to be injuries. Guys are going to get hurt, and so I've had a couple people ask me if there's a quarterback competition this fall because of how good everyone
No.
has heard that Ken Seals has done, and my response is absolutely not. But everybody that's been out there has to feel a lot better about if Ken Seals needs to step in for a game or a quarter or whatever else. And that's what you want, right? You want to have a clear hierarchy at certain positions, but things like both the defensive line, especially, the wide receiver groups, you want to be able to rotate guys as much as possible, keep them fresh. Like those two positions, especially. You'd like to have continuity on the offensive line, but we've seen how many seasons where TCU has lost a key contributor out of that group and the whole thing has fallen apart, right? That's happened time and time again. So if you have 6, 7, 8 guys that can step in without a significant drop off, if it allows you to have positional flexibility among that group, that's a massive thing. The running back's the same thing. There hasn't necessarily been a clear starter established necessarily, but that's not really how the game is played anymore with offensively with the running game, especially at Kendall Briles' offense. So the depth hopefully is going to be a net positive, and I truly believe it will be.
Yeah, and when you talk about the offensive line specifically, as we kind of continue to narrow it down here a little bit, for me, I saw a a pretty significantly different approach to offensive line work in fall camp this year than from 24 and 23. And that's the last two fall camps. I think we've seen a lot of guys up to this point in the season or in preseason training camp, whatever you want to call it, rotating in with the ones still. Like last year, I don't think 2 weeks out from kickoff against Stanford, we knew for certain what the starting five on the offensive line was going to
Yeah.
be because you still had Brockermeyer taking snaps at center with the ones. You had Deary taking snaps at center. You had Strickland and Bruno and, a couple other guys rotating in at the tackle spots. Like there was a lot of moving parts when it came to the ones. And that hasn't really been the case this fall camp for TCU. With pretty strong certainty, you're getting Ryan Hughes at left tackle, Carson Bruno at right, or sorry, Ryan Hughes at left tackle, Carson Bruno at shit. I backed up. I messed up. We're going back. You have Ryan Hughes at left tackle, Cade Bennett at left guard, Colton Deary at center, Carson Bruno at right guard, and Ben Taylor Whitfield at right tackle. Like that's really your five. And the one kind of maybe question mark is how much are we going to see Remington Strickland at right guard? I think though, just based on what we've seen the last week, Bruno has the edge there, is going to be the starter, and then we'll probably see Strickland rotate in, not insignificantly, over the course of a game. That is so much different for those guys to have those many reps together at this point in the season. Not to mention, getting Cade Bennett back in the spring and having him start to do work after missing a whole season with a back injury. For them to have that level of continuity at this point, with 2 weeks now to prepare for what North Carolina is going to offer up from their defensive front, I think that puts you so far ahead of where you were this time a year ago, where you were still trying to figure out just like, who's our right guard going to be? And so I think that that's a good takeaway that the Frogs can hang their hats on. We can debate the level of talent. We can debate the level of whatever, level of confidence in these guys. But I think a offensive line that has continuity and good communication and can trust each other will win out most times, even if they don't have 5 stars across the board. So for me, one of my big kind of position group takeaways is I think the offensive line is in a pretty good spot right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm like we've talked about this too. I'm still gonna hold and reserve judgment until game one, but the ceiling. I think I said this last week. The ceiling is absolutely higher than it was a season ago, and most importantly, so is the floor.
Yep.
This group looks like at worst to be very solid and at best to be a really top end unit. Like I definitely think the talent, the size, and hopefully the continuity will be there. And for all the reasons that you mentioned, there's a lot more reason to believe in this group than I think there was a season ago.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to this kind of next category here. Who's one of your biggest risers from fall camp? I'm talking about specific players.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave you the guy that you got caught in the background doing the whoo, which was a great reaction. If you guys didn't see it, go watch. Well, I won't spoil it, but when you talk about it, we'll talk about the highlight. But I think the guy that I think we'd all kind of forgotten about and what a talent he was coming out of high school is Kylan Jackson, transfer from LSU. So he has seemed to be effective in a variety of roles at that safety position. He's done a lot of things well. He's a big hitter. He's a big guy, and I think that having size in the secondary is something that we don't take for granted at TCU because it hasn't always been that way. He's an incredible athlete, just an absolute incredible athlete. He has 4 picks in 2 games in my year 2 of my dynasty. Just throwing that out. Single-handedly beat SMU by picking off Jennings 3 times in a game that I couldn't
It's
score.
like Penn State all over again.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, exactly. But I think that it's snaps are going to be very competitive in that safety group, right? There's a lot of guys that can play, but he has really, really impressed me with the fire that he plays with and just his football IQ back there. Like, it's so important at the safety position to have a great understanding of what's happening in front of you pre-snap. And he has made a lot of really, really good reads. And then he's also not afraid to put his helmet down and hit somebody. And he's caused a couple of fumbles, just made a bunch of big plays. It seems like every time that they're scrimmaging, his name is coming up a bunch of times.
Yeah, and you think about it, he's taken a ton of reps with the twos because Austin Jordan has been so
Yeah.
consistent at that nickel safety spot ahead of him. And so kind of gets back to the depth that I was talking about earlier. If you've got 2 guys that can run at that nickel spot and keep each other fresh, and then you've got 2 guys that are ready to rock in the 3rd and 4th quarters, I think you're just that much stronger of a football team when it kind of boils down to nut cutting time.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, we all know I'm going to talk about Jacoby Hayes because the kid rocks. One of the lowest rated kids in this class, didn't get on campus until earlier in August, like had everything stacked against him from a perception standpoint, from a preparation standpoint, and all he's done is come in and turn heads. He's done everything the coaches asked him to do. Sonny Dykes gave him just tremendous praise last week when he said everything he does at 100 miles an hour. Malcolm Kelly reiterated that and said, I can work with that. If you're going 100 miles an hour and you make a mistake, okay, I can work with that. If you're going 20 miles an hour and you make a mistake, there are other problems that you have to address as well. So with Jacoby, it's about everything he does is 100 miles an hour. He's made some absolutely electric catches. One that made the TCU football Twitter. And yes, I am in the background making a face like because it was the best catch of fall camp. It was the hands down best catch of fall camp. One-handed catch down the sideline, probably 35 yards downfield, pins the ball to his helmet like he's doing a David Tyree impression, and comes down with the football. Like it was such a good catch. And so you have this true freshman, 18 years old. We got to talk to him the other day. He's so mature, great head on his shoulders, understands that maybe he didn't get as many opportunities as he wanted, and maybe at this point, as many opportunities as he deserved as far as offers out of high school. But he's stepped on campus and he's just like, I'm just going to make the most of it. I'm going to do everything I can to earn playing time. And it's just really cool to see. He strikes me as the kind of guy that TCU was built on. These underrated, under-recruited, maybe not the biggest bodies kind of guys who are just going to go balls to the wall for the entire game, and they're going to make you think about them, and they're going to make plays over you, and they're going to talk their talk, and you're going to come out victorious more often than not when you've got guys like that on the roster. And so great addition to this class. He was a North Texas commit for a long time. TCU flipped him pretty late in the process and got him on campus here in August. Wonderful addition. Really impressed by him, and cannot wait to see the kind of impact he has on day one. Because Sonny said he's going to be out there probably for the first snap, which means he's going to be on special teams. And then, based on other injuries in the wide receiver room, we'll probably see him running some routes on Labor Day as well.
It's just going to be really, really hard to keep him off the field.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it's going to come down to. As much experience as there is in that room theoretically ahead of him, it's going to be really hard to keep him off the field. And he's one of those kids. He's just electric. Like something's going to happen every time he has the ball in his hand. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him play. Yeah, if you haven't seen that catch, go to Instagram or Twitter and look at TCU football and make sure you watch at the very end for Jamie Plunkett sighting in the background.
You got a pretty good screenshot of it.
I did. Yeah, I tweeted it. It was pretty
It's
awesome.
very nice. Who's another big riser for you?
A guy that has kind of taken advantage of some opportunities with some guys banged up in front of him is Jonathan Bax. I think another player that I've really sticking on the defense, I guess, tonight.
That's all right.
Yeah, but he's a kid that I think, this is the season where you need to see him do something, right? That there's that expectation, that jump and that rise for him. Such a talented player coming out of high school, a guy TCU fans were really excited to get, and it wasn't always easy to keep. So I think that Bax has been very, very good, and with some injuries and some issues among the defensive front, watching him step up and start to look like a much more complete player has been really, really critical for the success. We talked about the depth and that the pass rush it's going to be so critical. That unit is still probably not the deepest one. TCU's defensive line is probably that's probably where we're most concerned about depth overall. And so if some of those young guys can step up and be effective in limited roles or in specific roles, I think that's really valuable for the Horned Frogs going forward. I was vamping there for those of you guys that are
great.
not watching it on YouTube. And so if it sounded like I was just saying a bunch of words because Jamie had to step away for a second and I was just saying a bunch of words, but
I tried to make it as seamless as possible.
Yeah, you did a good job. I wasn't quite ready. Unlike Jonathan Bax, I did not meet the moment. I feel like in that time, so I am upset for that. But
it's fall camp for us too.
Yeah, it's fall camp for us. He's a junior, and he's a guy that I think we've kind of expected to pop for a while, and so this is the year where you really want to see that growth. And in the era that we're in college football, this is kind of the prove it, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's got an opportunity to work himself into the rotation, or he won't be here, and they worked to keep him.
Yeah.
So I think that he has seemed to understand that this camp, and we've seen him live in the backfield and make some big plays and understand his assignments and be in the, understand the expectations for every snap that he's taking. And so I've been really excited about him. And he's such a physical specimen that he's a guy that you'd like to see be successful on the field for sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to stick on the offensive side of the ball since you've gone two folks on defense here, and I think one of my other biggest risers is Kavorian Barnes. I think when you look at this group of running backs and you have all the questions that kind of linger from last year's running game and the challenges that the offensive line faced, the challenges that the running backs faced, there were still moments where guys like Nate Palmer popped, guys like Jeremy Payne popped, but overall, pretty lethargic running game, and it never felt until Savion got the ball like they could get 3 yards when they needed to get 3 yards. And to me, Kavorian Barnes is the guy who can do that, and he's shown that this fall. Now, I am going to be so hesitant to make any kind of claims about the running game or the run defense after last year when I thought Cam Cook was going to be like a 1,300-yard rusher.
Yeah.
But what I have seen from Kavorian Barnes that gives me hope is that he is A, very hard to tackle, B, willing to make contact and almost seeks it out to an extent, and then C, still has the mobility and the footwork to be able to get around some guys and get out of tough situations to make something out of nothing. And when you think about where TCU's run game was last year and what they were really lacking, Barnes really checks a lot of those boxes. A physical runner in between the tackles, willing to hit people, able to kind of wiggle out. He is like 5'9", 218, and he falls forward a lot. And if you think back to when the Frogs had Kendre Miller and Amari DiMercado, those guys fell forward a lot. And they turned 1 yard gains into 2 yard gains and 2 yard gains into 3 yard gains because of that. And if you just add that aspect back into TCU's running game, I think there's going to be a pretty significant step forward in that area. And that's going to make this offense a ton better. When you're sitting there at 4th and 2 on the 25 and you want to go for it late in the game, can you kill the rest of the clock? Can you go get those 2 yards? Well, you don't have to do some funky kind of flat pass or a screen. You can just hand it to Kavorian Barnes, and he's probably going to go get you those 2.5 yards that you need. And that's so reassuring for an offensive coordinator and for a coaching staff to know you have that safety blanket. And it opens up the playbook in ways that we just didn't see TCU open up the playbook last year. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I like Kavorian Barnes. I still think it's mostly going to be by committee. But when you have a guy who can kind of be the stabilizer, like Barnes possibly could be, I think that's a really valuable thing to have.
Well, and it might be even more important based on something I'm sure we'll talk about here a little bit later, that you can convert 4th and short and plus territory when you're in that 25 to 35 yardage line. I will add to that too. One of the best things about seeing Kavorian Barnes have such a great camp is how unimpressed most of Frog fandom was when he was signed.
Sure.
And we've touched on it, but he came in. He'd been a little bit banged up at UTSA. He's gotten down to a weight that's a little bit more comfortable for him too. And so it looks like he put in the work to be prepared, and another guy that's taken advantage of the opportunity. And I don't think he's going to carry it 20 times a game. But I think he can be super effective about 12 to 14 times, especially in short yardage and goal line situations.
And you still need to have room for some of these other guys. Like Nate Palmer has looked good, Jeremy Payne has looked good. I don't think either of those guys has done anything to take the starting job from Barnes necessarily, but they've shown good, not more than flashes. I mean, they had good fall camps, I think,
they'll play.
and will be good additions to that room.
Denman too. He's done
Denman as well.
Denman's
Yeah, we're going to see some Denman. Yeah, he's strong. So if you go back to Barnes' UTSA stats, I pulled them up just now. He had a tough 2024, 2.8 yards a carry, not great, right? Just 2 rushing touchdowns. Was so hurt. He only ran for 221 yards last year. So if you're only looking at 24 numbers, you're going to think, okay, why? What's the reason that they brought him in? We'll go back to 22 and 23, where he was averaging 6.3 yards a carry in 2022, 4.9 yards a carry in 2023. He had 6 rushing touchdowns in each of those years. He had a couple nice catches out of the backfield, but he was 800-yard rusher in 22, a 700-yard rusher in 23. Like, you don't need a 1,200, 1,300-yard rusher back there. But if he can give you 650 yards and 5 touchdowns, and then the other guys can combine for another 600 yards and 5 touchdowns, that's a good running game. That's a fine running game.
Last year,
yeah. So that's where I am. I don't need a world beater at running back to take 25 carries. We don't need LT back there. Would love to have LT back there.
Take him,
But I'm just saying, like, in this offense specifically, he probably could. He'd probably get you 3 yards if you need one right now. Yeah. But you don't, because of the talent at other positions, you're not overly reliant on a single running back to go and get you 120 rushing yards a game. You'd love to have it. You'd take it if you get it, but you're not dependent on it. And I think that's a big thing.
I'll do you one better. If he can go and convert on 3rd and short and 4th and short, I don't care what his yards per carry are. I don't care how many total yards. If you have a guy that can consistently do that, that's more than TCU's had in a while.
100%. 100%. Let's shift the conversation, though, Melissa, and talk about question marks, because I think it would be foolish to come out of 2 weeks of fall camp, 2.5 weeks of fall camp, and say, we don't really have any questions about this team. We think they're ready for North Carolina. They're going 13-0, whatever it might be.
Do you think differently?
I do. So what we're going to do now is talk about some of those questions. If you have a big question, what are some of the things you feel like you still need an answer on when it comes to this football team?
I mean, look, I think the easiest one and the biggest one right now is the kicking game.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that we saw some inconsistency a season ago from Lemmerman, and he was a true freshman. And, he got put on the spot with a 50-something yard kick with the time winding down and game, 3 of the season. And I don't know if that just kind of upset the apple cart right away, but it seemed like he never fully recovered from a kick that no one expected him to make, but would have been really cool if he did. But that's freshman year. It's first year. he didn't have a super consistent spring, and he's dealt with some of the same inconsistency this fall as well. And so, he has a massive leg that's never been in doubt. He was an elite kicker at South Lake. He was, I think, the number one overall kicking recruit in the country coming to TCU, or one of the top two or three. And he is just not put together the level of consistency that TCU would like to see out of their kicker this fall. So I think I'm not going to say like we need open tryouts. I'm not there by any stretch of the imagination. But you hope that he gets with, I would imagine for kickers, the sports psychology department, and leans on whatever resources he has to help get his mind right for competition. Because we talked about how fun the Big 12 is because no one knows anything. That means a lot of games are going to come down to 3, 4, 6 points, I have a feeling, this fall. And so having a reliable kicker, even a guy that, like, I just want him to be money inside 40 yards. I'd like him to be money to about 48. That feels like a reasonable expectation for college kickers now. But if TCU is facing a 4th and 6 from the 25-yard line, I want to be confident they can put 3 points on the board. Like, those are kind of the situations that you want to see. So it's hard to tell out of camp, but we've seen some hurry up situations where he wasn't ready to kick. We've seen some scrimmage situations where kicks were going, wide right and then overcompensating and going wide left. And so I think that's an area that you hope in the next 2 weeks they can tidy up. And the cool thing with kicking is for him, it's not a physical thing. Everything can change after one good day. And I'm still very confident that opportunity is going to arise for him. I'm certainly rooting for him, and I want him to be great, and I think he has the talent to do so. So you just hope that switch flips here the next 2 weeks.
And the other really nice thing about this particular circumstance is that it's not a talent issue as far
Yeah.
as leg strength goes. Like he missed a 52 or 53 yarder in the scrimmage the other day, but it didn't fall short. I
Yeah.
mean, if it was on target, it would have been good from 60, right?
Yeah.
And so for him, it is more about accuracy than strength and just kind of dialing in where are you on the field? I don't know, kicking strategies and tactics and mechanics, but just finding a way to maybe make your mechanics a little bit more repeatable so that you're more consistent when it comes to accuracy.
Yeah.
Because we've seen the leg strength, we know that that's there, and maybe like you said, maybe it just takes one good day to knock a couple in and really get that confidence back,
Yeah.
and that would be great for TCU to not have to second guess that short down and distance situation late in the game where you could take three and maybe put a thing away, but are you asking questions because you're not as confident as you should be? We'll know more when Labor Day rolls around. But
Yep.
yeah, that's definitely a big question for sure. I think for me, my big question is about some of the health of some guys because there are some guys that have been banged up in camp, and you don't really want some of these depth guys or some of these potential starters to miss week one. And
Yeah.
so we didn't see Marcus Steele a lot the last week of the scrimmage. Major Everhart got banged up on a really nice touchdown catch, and we didn't see him after that. Dozie Ezekanma is banged up. Channing Canada is banged up. Dylan Kinney got banged up in the first scrimmage and was impressively dressed out for the second scrimmage. Like, he was out of the red jersey, which was nice to see. But you're starting to see some guys kind of get banged up a little bit. Devin Deal is another one who hasn't practiced a ton recently. Bud Clark didn't play in the second scrimmage, right? And so
That's
some
the
of
season is
some of that
47th
is load
year
management
yeah.
because Bud Clark is the same age as Tom Brady, but also, you've got some guys who are having some bumps and bruises that are keeping them from really going right now. And Jordan Bailey's another one, right, who we haven't seen a ton of in fall camp. I would love to see TCU get into that first injury report and not have to have a ton of guys who are questionable and doubtful and out.
Yeah.
Just because I think longevity, we talked about depth and we talked about longevity, that depth kind of gets erased if you're missing 10, 12 guys
Sure.
week one. And these next 2 weeks, I think, are going to be really important for recovery for a lot of those guys. Obviously, TCU has all the confidence in the world in their training staff, and they should. I think it's one of the best ones in the country. But getting a lot of those guys right so that you're at full strength week one is a question that I'm still asking. Like, are they going to get there?
Well, that's where you hope that over these next 2 weeks, most of those guys that you mentioned are veteran players that have been around a long time, and so again, you hope it's mostly load management or letting them rest the bumps and bruises as opposed to needing to hold them out because injuries are more serious than has been let on. So, like injuries this time of year are always a massive concern. It's always a major concern, and I guess the hope is mostly that there's nothing serious, nothing that's going to cost guys a couple of months, but more that for most of them, you hope it costs them less than 2 weeks so they can be ready to go Monday night.
Absolutely. All right, Melissa, let's move on. I think we've covered fall camp. That's a nice bow on the end of it. We're going to get into North Carolina here in the next week. We're going to get into hot takes as the shows roll on. But for now, I think we should pivot to a team that has already played a couple games, gotten a couple
TCU's
wins
undefeated
under
in
their belt.
25.
You love to see it. TCU Soccer, ranked number 9 in the country to start the season, comes out 6-1 drubbing of
Yeah.
Pepperdine in their season opener at home in front of all the great TCU fans. It looked packed out there. And then they come back with a win at UTSA, 1-0 to cap that off. The first week went really well, sitting there at 2-0. Things look pretty good for the Frogs early on this season.
Yeah, this is a really, really good TCU team. You talk about depth. TCU has players sitting on their bench that would start at just about any Power Four program in the country right now, and they're doing this all without Bella Diorio, one of their All-Americans, and they've looked really, really solid without her. Have not gotten an extent of her injury. I will be out at TCU Soccer Tuesday night, so I'll try to get some more information. She hasn't played, and who's the other person that hasn't played? One other there, the transfer from A&M. Her name slipped me, but I don't think she's played yet either. But this team, Cam Patton is a name. She was a freshman last year. She started most of the games. She was amazing at the end of the season. She hit the game winner against UTSA on Sunday night with about, I think, less than 10 minutes to play in that one. She knocked one through in a game they just scuffled. Wasn't their cleanest, but TCU is a ball control offense. They're not necessarily trying to score 6 goals a game, and so I think they played more their style.
That'd be nice.
It would. The Pepperdine game, they were very opportunistic, and you love to see it. They were very
Sydney
aggressive.
Becerra is who you were
Yes,
thinking of.
Sydney
earlier.
Becerra. Thank you very much. There's a lot of players on a TCU soccer roster. I'm getting there. But the goalkeeping I think has been really, really solid. That was a concern coming into the season, but that has not been an issue as of late. And then I think we mentioned her a couple weeks ago, but Camden Fuller, true freshman, just turned 17 last week. Younger than some of my juniors in high school that I teach. Had 2 goals in her first game and just looks the part of a superstar. And when you pair her with Seven Castaigne, who has been every bit as good as we expect her to be with 2 early goals and an assist, Cam Patton, who I just mentioned, AJ Hennessy has been really, really good so far this season. And then Morgan Brown, another potential All-American candidate that's back. The transfers that they have, there's not a lot of holes in this group. I'm sure Eric Bell will tell me all of the things they did wrong Sunday night. But from my vantage point, I think what you're seeing is a team that's figuring out how to play together. They go on the road. They'll be at Iowa, which is a really, really good program and a tough place to play. And then at Texas, that you mentioned before we started recording, already does have a loss on their belt, but still tough to go into Austin and win a game. So Eric Bell continues to schedule like an absolute madman before conference play, and the Big 12 soccer conference is just about as good as any in the country. So there's a lot of confidence on this team. There's a lot of really good veterans, Seven Castaigne, AJ Hennessy, like I mentioned, among others. And when they're at full strength, assuming that will hopefully be soon, the sky really is the limit for this group. Winning a Big 12 title isn't enough for this program anymore. It's kind of an expectation. It won't be easy. But it's certainly their goal. But this is a team that wants to get to the College Cup, wants to make the Final Four in the NCAA tournament, and is not afraid to say it. That's what they're aiming for this year. They had a very, very bad taste in their mouth with the way things ended last season. So I expect them to be angry this fall, and that's going to be really fun for us to watch.
It really is. Their next game comes up this Thursday, August 21st at Iowa. Road game there against the Hawkeyes. Then they go on the road again next week at Texas. So, like you said, 2 big games coming up. Then they're back home for a home game against Northwestern. We'll be keeping a lot of tabs on them. Women's volleyball is getting up and
Yeah.
running as well. They had their purple and white game on Sunday evening right after Meet the Frogs for the football team. I thought that was a really well coordinated day by the athletics department to get the football folks out there. And then, hey, by the way, you can just wander on over and watch the volleyball team get their licks in on each other. August 22nd, this Friday, they've got an exhibition at SMU before their season gets underway. And then women's golf is getting up and running. They've got a tournament, not this weekend, but next weekend in the Carmel Cup. And then men's cross country is getting running as well. We're like a week and a half away from
Full bore,
just
baby.
like everything getting rolling. All the fall sports are up and running. It is such a fun time for TCU athletics. It also means our podcast episodes might get a little longer.
Shocker.
Shocker. That's crazy. Based on the numbers, based on the retention numbers for length of shows, the recommendations like, oh yeah, go 30 minutes. But you guys, by the way, our listeners, you guys just power through. Like we have like 88 to 92% retention rate all the way through our episodes, every episode. So shout out to y'all. Y'all are the real goats, real MVPs, to quote Kevin Durant. And yeah, we're just gonna get real
Fun.
fired up for another
Yeah.
fall. It's gonna be so
Super
good.
fired up, yeah.
We've still got so many cool announcements that we're still kind of ironing out on the back end here. So hopefully those come in the next week or two. And then next episode, hot takes. Get that oven up and cooking, folks, because we're gonna need your hottest of hot takes.
I don't want to burn myself again, so don't make up. I burned myself.
Sorry,
before
that was the
so
triggering
a
thing
too
for you.
soon.
Sorry about
I
that.
did
Yeah, too
fry
soon.
the heck out of my elbow.
Get your Bunsen burners up to max flame level, folks, because we need the hottest of takes and the highest of flames ready for next episode, where potentially we have a special guest or two.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's going to do it for this episode of Frogs Insider. She's Melissa Treebwasser. I am Jamie Plunkett. Subscribe, like, leave a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. Go and like the YouTube channel as well. And we will be back next episode 131 with some hot takes. Until then, go Frogs.
Go Frogs.